I think we're about to witness one of the greatest recessions of all time. Across the country, there has been mass layoffs. The inventory in the real estate market has been increasing, and the median home sales have been going down. So you're seeing a lot of people list their properties just to cash out on the equity that they've gotten over the past couple of years.
The 2025 recession is going to be one for the history books. Now, we just got an indication as to when and why this is going to happen. Now, what I'm about to tell you, we have not seen since 2008. Now, American credit card debt is over $1 trillion, which is some of the highest debt in the history of the U.S.
So as a younger millennial slash like Gen Zer, I'm like on the cusp. I am genuinely interested to see how this recession shakes out and how it's going to affect my generation.
Ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to talk about something that is just permeating across the mainstream media, the news, social media, and that is, are we in a recession? Everyone seems to think that we are in a recession, and that is for a number of reasons. We have a potential trade war. The stock market is not reacting well to that. Interest rates are still extremely high, and housing affordability is just not even a thing. And along with that, we have consumer debt that's just exploding. There's a whole bunch of things that are, making people feel as though Americans are not in the best position financially, and therefore recession is at our doorstep. But I want to talk about some things that I've seen and potentially get some more insight into whether or not we are in a recession.
So as a younger millennial slash like Gen Zer, I'm like on the cusp. I am genuinely interested to see how this recession shakes out and how it's going to affect my generation, a generation that has never really lived through a recession before. Like, we were alive during '08, but we didn't really feel the effects of it as fully as someone like a older millennial who was going to college during that time, graduated, did not have a job lined up because there were no jobs, maybe pursued higher education, and then again there was no guarantee of a job. So they're a little bit more jaded and like have experience and speak to what the impacts were on their life. If you are like 35 and younger, you probably have not dealt with the effects of a recession before, but if you're 35 and older, you probably have. Like, our generation is heavy on consuming things, whether that's media, buying things on TikTok Shop, buying things on Amazon. We have always had like we're clickers, especially during a recession. People stop spending money, going out, eating out, buying things. So I wonder what like companies are going to do. Companies are going to slash their marketing dollars. Everyone knows that's the first thing to go during a recession. But marketing is such a big tool in this digital world. Marketing is so big. And so like, are influencers not going to go on their influencer trips anymore? Are people just like, people are probably going to like post budget-friendly activities, budget-friendly videos, things you can make at home without buying anything, like pantry staples, all of those. I feel like that's going to become really big in the next year because people are going to learn how to cook. Especially living in DC, where people had thought that their jobs were very stable. Those jobs are not so stable anymore. And so I feel like it's probably like ground zero in terms of feeling the effects of what a recession could look like. I'm sure other people everywhere are going to feel it. So
one thing that I thought was very interesting that she mentioned was the whole idea that people are going to make content showing people budget-friendly options, things like that. I find that interesting because that's something that I've personally always liked to do, just because if I'm going to be cooking something, I don't want to be spending as much money as I would if I was eating out. Now, that is also a trend that I've seen. A lot of people are trying to save money, find ways to cut down on expenses. And food is one of those things that can take up a huge portion of your monthly spending. And I do think that there will be a surge of content out there and opportunities out there for people to, make stuff for people that are looking to save money. But yeah, I don't think DoorDash, I don't think Uber Eats, I don't think all those particular companies are going to be thriving all that much personally. Nor should we be spending on those things just because the delivery fees alone are like, 20% of the whole transaction, which is just crazy. And most of the time when the food gets here, it's just cold. So you're getting, a terrible product for a crazy amount of money. Just, it doesn't make sense to me anymore. That was also another thing that she mentioned in terms of millennials, people that are below the age of 35, that are kind of like millennial Gen Z. We have experienced a recession, and that was during COVID, so that I don't think that she was completely accurate there. Of course, that was a self-inflicted recession, but we have experienced tough times in our working ages, or if you're, between the ages of 18 to 30 at this point, you've experienced a tough time. It was a different type of recession because, if you were a self-employed individual, you suffered a lot. But if you were an employee, if you worked at a corporation, you benefited a ton. All that to say, there's suffering that comes with a recession, and this woman seems to think that we are on the cusp of one if she's making a video like this. But let's see what else is out there. Okay, let's see what this gentleman has to say about recession. He seems to think there's a recession with this alert going on here.
The 2025 recession is going to be one for the history books. Now, we just got an indication as to when and why this is going to happen. Now, what I'm about to tell you, we have not seen since 2008. Now, American credit card debt is over $1 trillion, which is some of the highest debt in the history of the U.S. Now, everyone knows that lots of people are using credit cards right now just to pay their bills. The interest rate on those cards is between 16 and 26%. Now, the real problem, however, is that nearly 12% of that debt is now more than 90 days past due. That is a sign that many people are already in deep financial trouble. Now, why is this important? Well, we haven't seen this happen since 2008, which I think we can all agree was a pretty bad recession. Now, think about it. The reason people racked up this debt is because they don't have the money to pay their bills. Now, those same people cannot afford to make the minimum payments on those cards. It's going to be one of those proverbial straws that breaks the camel's back.
Potentially.
Now, the American people are about to endure a very bad recession. That's why I keep encouraging my followers to do your best to decrease spending in your household, stop eating out, and don't waste money on that new iPhone. Save that money for food and utilities. It's going to be a bumpy road ahead.
His general sentiment was not too far off, honestly. My personal opinion, and this is not anything like 2008, if we are entering into recession territory. His comments on American debt are very interesting, and I think that's something that needs to be talked about more because it is extremely concerning when Americans are having to pay the bills basically with credit cards. I know many people are doing that just because of inflation, the costs of all these goods and services, the costs of energy, all these things have gone up over the past 5 years. If Americans continue to default on their credit cards, that will be an issue on the banking sector as a whole. There also are car loans that there's also been a huge explosion of car loans that are just unbelievable. Like literally some of them cost more than my mortgage. And if people start defaulting on those, that's going to be an issue broadly speaking for the economy. So there definitely are indicators that things are not good. The best argument, in my opinion, that a recession is imminent is the fact that American credit card debt is at its all-time high, and that I think the average household carries anywhere from like $6,000 to $10,000 of credit card debt. That is not good, obviously, because the interest rates on those are between 18 to 25% on average. So, that's entering into territory just like never being able to pay it off unless you dramatically increase your income and lower your expenses. And I like what you said at the very end in terms of just warning people to do that, to not eat out as much, to just find ways to cut down on expenses. Just generally speaking, that's good advice and it's stuff that you should probably do.
Earlier today, my financial advisor sent us an email asking how we were feeling about everything that's happening in the markets and if we had any questions or anything. And basically, no. You've heard the phrasing that people who get hurt on a roller coaster are the ones that jump off. So that's kind of our approach, and he agrees too. But he made a comment that I think is good for us to hear, and so I wanted to share it. Above all, expect many news headlines. Even a hint of a recession will lead to a lot of fear-mongering because fear gets clicks. The truth is, we don't know we're in a recession until we're in one, and then they only last an average of 10 months. This means that by the time we know we're in one, we might be halfway through it. It's important not to let the headlines and social media posts make us hit the panic button and have a knee-jerk reaction. So if that helps you, then I hope it does.
It's funny, one of the comments says here, I'm guessing someone who has a financial advisor can afford a 10-month recession without concern. Must be nice. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. It is what it is. Now, one thing he did mention, one thing that was very clear to me over the past few weeks as I've been seeing these headlines is that most people that are shouting recession is just around the corner or that we are currently in one, I don't think truly have a good understanding of what that means necessarily. It does get a lot of clicks. I mean, I'm making this video about recession, so I mean, you're interested in it because it's very doom and gloomy. And as his financial advisor mentioned, if there's just a hint of recession, and with this trade war and the tariffs kind of going on at this current time, the market's going to react, which it did react. We entered into, I think, correction territory last week. You should not panic no matter what, or it does no good for you. It does no good to those around you. You just kind of have to be able to go with the flow, go with the punches, and take control of what is in your peer view to take control of. And that includes stuff that was mentioned in the last video, like cutting down on your expenses, making sure that you're saving money, like you're actually saving money. If you have no debt, you're actually investing that money so that you're fighting against inflation with your dollars, and you're doing that as early as you possibly can. And if you do have debt, making sure that you get that paid off as quickly as possible, because you'll just feel so much better if we do enter into a recession, when you don't have to worry about the $5,000 credit card just accumulating interest. You'll have money to play with. You'll be able to set aside money for a rainy day if you do happen to lose your job, because that's another aspect of all of this, is just like the labor markets, the job markets. Not a whole lot of great sentiment when it comes to that. We're kind of in a place where there's a lot of uncertainty, and so you just got to be smart. You got to be wise with what you have coming in, and don't panic. That's the biggest thing. Don't panic, and make sure that you're just taking care of yourself, your family, things like that.
America is going downhill. I think we're about to witness one of the greatest recessions of all time.
I don't know why that just made me laugh the way you said that. I don't know.
Across the country, there has been mass layoffs. The inventory in the real estate market has been increasing, and the median home sales have been going down. So you're seeing a lot of people list their properties just to cash out on the equity that they've gotten over the past couple of years. It's crazy what's going on right now. And then there's not a lot of job opportunities. So a lot of companies are dissolving these jobs, and they're dissolving programs. So that's going to leave a lot of people either in foreclosure, or it's going to make the inventory increase. But the only people that may be able to grab that inventory is people that are coming from states where the cost of living is a lot higher, or people who are buying those houses with cash. 70% of America is living paycheck to paycheck right now. They're struggling. So who's going to buy these properties? They're big corporations and the huge companies.
He's making really good points, honestly. And this is kind of what we saw in 2020, when people were being furloughed. People were losing jobs in 2020 because the economy was shut down. There were people that were getting jobs, but people did lose jobs. And a lot of people moved from states that had a much higher income and their property values were extremely high, like California and New York, to states that are more affordable, like Texas, Florida, Montana, and just bought up all those properties that they could. Some of them purchased with cash. They didn't have to finance their home because, if you had a house in California, like in the Bay Area, for example, and you sold it for $1 million and you netted 700, for example, you can come to Texas back in 2020, 2021 and buy the house cash. You could buy 2 houses cash if you wanted to. And so that typically happens in recessionary periods. It's, in my opinion, you're not going to see it as much now because interest rates are so high. And from my understanding, people aren't selling homes as well as they had been in the past because most people are not cash buyers at this point. Like there's multiple houses in my neighborhood that have been on the market for over 120 days. So I don't think we're just jumping into things as quickly as my friend over here thinks we are. But let's see what else he has to say.
That's who's going to buy these properties. So right now, as you can see, the middle class has been completely dissolved. There is no more middle class. Either you're in the higher upper class or you're struggling. So what's the next move? People are saying that you can't invest in the stock market right now. So what can you do? My plan is to move to Africa. That's it. I'm getting out of here.
He's just going to leave to Africa. That's one way to do it, I guess. That's one way to do it. I mean, he brought up good points like the idea of corporations purchasing homes. I mean, that is another reason as to why many believe that home prices are increasing. It's just because corporations like BlackRock, Vanguard, those types of companies are increasing their portfolio of single family homes. And because there's not a lot of inventory of homes, just basic supply and demand economics, home prices are going to increase because there's just not enough inventory out there. And unfortunately, there are a bunch of buyers that exist. They just cannot afford to finance the homes at 6% for a 30-year fixed. All that to say, there is a lot of sentiment out there that exists that is very negative, very negative. Like the first comment on this video is no jobs anywhere. Yeah, it does seem like that. Another very telling comment, honestly, is the new middle class is making $200,000 a year at minimum. And that was another thing he said that I do agree with. We are moving into a place in our country where the middle class is really dissolving. You're either living paycheck to paycheck or you're living in abundance, if you will. And a lot of it honestly comes down to, there are forces at hand beyond our control, like inflation, that have increased the price of everything to the point of, many people just not being able to afford to live. But we also have just been marketed towards, like crazy. Americans are the top consumers in the world of most goods and services. We are just a nation of spenders. And that does not help when tough times do arrive, because then we have no money saved up to be able to, take advantage possibly of a recession. All to say, it's very difficult, honestly, at this point in time to know for sure that we're in a recession. But like I've said multiple times throughout this video, we are definitely in a place right now where people are on the edge. People are living in fear, and you should not live in fear. You should not be on the edge. You should just take control of the things you can control. Make sure you're not spending money on things that are absolutely needless. Make sure you try to not eat out, or whatever your prerogative is, whatever you spend more money on. Actually look at your bank statements, look at what you're spending money on, and cut those things out. Cut out the Netflix if you're not watching Netflix, or cut off Apple TV after you finish Severance. There's no reason to keep Apple TV besides Severance. Make sure that you're starting off with an emergency fund of $1,000 and then building up to 3 to 6 months of living expenses. And that means you actually have to know what your living expenses are, and then just set goals. Make it fun. Make saving money fun. Make spending less money fun. And we'll get through this. Whether we're in a recession or not, we will get through this. Thank you so much for watching the video. I hope you learned a thing or two. I hope you were entertained. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like and subscribe for more videos like this. And until next time, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.